Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. I'm here in Los Angeles, Gold Diggers Club, and it's been a very interesting journey out here from Tucson. But I feel honored to be able to kick off this run interviewing a really creative musician and artist, somebody who keeps the integrity of his own art within the music as much as possible. Nico, Georis, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thanks, man.
You know, can you just talk about when you first recognized that you were a conduit for information coming through you from the heavens, like musically? Maybe you have other things that you are really gifted at, but with music, you recognize that you had a healing capacity, or you just felt the magic, so to speak.
Earliest memory was probably 3 or 4 years old, sitting in a little tree in the backyard, and I was kind of a loner. And I'd just sit there and figured out that I could sing melodies, and it was like this entertaining little game, and I figured out I could just do it, just like sit there and like play with melodies and entertain myself.
Nature sounds too, but were you incorporating like bird calls?
I was chilling with some birds. There was all these blue jays up in the tree, but it was more just like, you know, just being like, whoa, sounds coming out, like, whoa, like, you know, just vibration. That was the earliest time.
How long have you been performing? That's the wrong word. Creating for live audiences.
Let's see. It's been a minute. I think my first show was 8 or 9 years old.
What was that show like?
Know?
Is it more like a garden variety, like second grade band kind of thing?
It was actually for the Big Sur Marathon.
Damn.
I grew up down there, and so it's like the musical marathon. They have bands and different groups performing along the race, you know, to give the runners something to fuel them. So I was out there, I was playing classical piano, and then I made up a song called Mile 21. That was like one of my first originals because I was sitting at Mile 21 as a little kid, you know. So I had to play for I think 4 or 5 hours. I just played the same like songs over and over.
Wow. Did you have any formal training, or do you consider yourself kind of a street scholar? I mean, you learn by ear first before you learn to read music?
I mean, I'm prouder of what I learned by ear and from living in cities.
Why are you more proud of that?
Just because I feel like that's how you really learn, from actually rolling your sleeves up and actually just like getting into the music culture and figuring things out by having friends and listening to records and playing in a bunch of different bands. And just, you know, I lived in New York for 5 years, and that was honestly the biggest education, musically, culturally, otherwise, just life education overall. But I did also study. I had a really cool classical teacher when I was young, her teacher had been taught by Franz Liszt, so she was of this like really serious classical lineage, and she gave me like really good technique for a few years until I got too into Guns N' Roses for classical music, and I just wanted to rock out, you know.
I mean, can you give an example of being in? I mean, a lot of the older jazzers, they'd be in the Navy, they'd be in Chicago, they'd get up on the bandstand, they'd start playing a shuffle with the brothers, and the guys would get the F off the bandstand. Like, you knew where you stood. They would let you come back in a couple of days, but you had a shed. Were there humbling experiences musically that forced you out of your comfort zone in New York?
Oh, absolutely.
Give an example?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, pretty much everywhere I went for the first couple years was an example. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I did, yeah.
Because I came from a smaller town and, you know, thought I was kind of some hot shit a little bit. You know, as you do, and it's all right to feel that, but man, you got to get the smack down at some point, and that's what, so.
And you wanted that actually, right?
For sure,
yeah,
absolutely.
I did.
And you know, but then that it also refines your sense of self and like what music is about, because when, like New York proved to me that everybody had proficiency, and everybody had proficiency on their instrument. It was me being able to shred meant absolutely nothing, and there were people shred circles around me all day. But how I had to differentiate myself was just purely in terms of style and approach, and more about the notes that I didn't play and the tones that I was getting, and just like finding myself, my own personality, and the way that I listened. You know, there's all these kind of subtleties that we all get into as we like unlearn, you know, what we learned.
Exactly. You have to unlearn everything you learn and let it all go, and then but So yeah, there was no riffology school. Like everybody has chops, everybody has proficiency.
Yeah.
Like tonight here at Gold Diggers, can you talk about this? You use style. You had to find your niche through style, through arrangement, and through sonic nature, maybe tonality.
Yeah, tone.
You talk a little bit about what the audience can expect tonight and on these on upcoming tours.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what we're touring right now is really. At the base, it was inspired by Terry Riley's A Rainbow in Curved Air, and which, you know, those of us who know and love that record, it's such like an outer space laser beam paradise. That's
intergalactic.
Yeah, absolutely, kind of unapproachable piece of music. And then I saw him play the 50th anniversary, and he played it on a Nord with his son, and it was really stripped down, and I was able to hear kind of the 2 or 3 interlocking riffs right at the center of the molecule, and went home and I just like couldn't stop playing it, and I like caught rainbow disease basically. Like I could not fucking stop, and it was super challenging, all these like slow sevens, fast, you know, but that piece of music is very biological. It's a living source.
Breathing organism, right?
Yeah, it's like splitting an atom or something.
Yeah.
And it's also not like in C or some sort of like, you know, more classical like official piece of Terry Riley music. It's just like this like peaking on acid jam thing.
Was he doing psychedelics? I have to assume he was. I mean, he was hanging out with like the Sons of Champlin and those guys. So they were probably dosing.
I'm gonna go ahead and say they were, but
he's just a super enlightened. Yeah. Anyway, so the splitting. There's a lot of cats that split atoms in science that don't trip. But I mean, he was right there in the million.
Yeah. So there was that, and there was like the mirror delay, and the all-night concerts they would do. That super heavy mirror delay and all this stuff. And as I kind of went deeper into it and started, you know, making recordings and stuff, we started getting closer to figuring out how to do the trick live, you know. And then, but it's you know, not trying to emulate Terry Riley.
No.
It's just it's a departure.
Let me stop you right there. So, because I'm so fascinated with individual sound. I mean, as for a broadcaster, I'm just trying to be as so off the grid as possible that I can cut through the morass of what everyone else is doing. So when you look at that, you're not playing. You're playing stuff that is paying homage to it to a degree. But what would you say you're bringing to the table? Is it merely different instrumentation? Talk a little bit about how you're separating yourself and not being a carbon copy of Riley.
I mean, one simple way of saying it is that I'm doing what I wish Terry Riley, what I wanted to see, like my fantasy version of what this 50th anniversary was in my mind, but really what that meant is that we've got live tape loops going on. I've got, you know, like a different collage of synthesizers. We are using an organ that Terry Riley, the YC45D that he toured with in the 70s. So there's definitely elements, you know, but then we've got like this, you know, some stuff is sequenced. We're using a modular synth. There's definitely like different newer technology mixed with old technology. And it's kind of funkier. It's more like electro. It's more fucked up.
Danceable?
You know?
Is it more danceable?
Yeah, for sure. It's.
I mean, I can dance to all music. I can dance to music with no meter, but I'm just wondering, like, this might be, at least in sound check to me, it sounded like it was groove. There were grooves.
Yeah.
Not that Riley's he's not a funk guy, you know. There's some funk in this.
This is groovier.
Yeah.
And then the other element is that we have a third member of the band that's a filmmaker. You know, he's been working for a couple of years on all these 8mm experimental films. So, and he's jamming the visuals live with us. So you know.
Oh man.
But the other thing that I'm the proudest of, honestly, is that the original tracks that we're playing tonight are made of slot machine samples, and that was really inspired by Terry Riley, because the first time I heard A Rainbow in Curved Air, my immediate impression was like, holy shit, this record sounds like a bunch of slot machines come to life. Kind of some, like, you know, like a Disney Fantasia cartoon where like all the slot machines are like talking to each other and bleeping and blooping. So
Wow.
At a certain point, I realized I want to make that fantasy happen too. So then I got all of these different vintage slot machine samples, and we dropped those in, and started making music from those at different speeds with mirror delay, like using a lot of Terry Riley type of approaches to do to kind of like further that rainbow and curved air vibe.
Do the like record release tonight. Honored to have a copy of it. Obviously, your records are very experimental and they stretch out the tunes a lot. But would you say that you never play the same song the same way once, in the sense that like it's different every night?
Definitely.
Based on the vibe, the pulse, and the vibe of the crowd and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
You might take it one night if you're just out. You're going to take as many bars as you want and just go off, like And then other nights you might be. I don't know. You break it down.
Yeah, definitely. It's different every time. There's definitely reference points. There's things we found that work, but it's very improvisational, and we also throw each other curveballs on purpose. That's kind of just
the cats, man. The cats.
We have to do that because
keep yourself engaged.
If I'm not taking chances, then I'm not playing well. I'm not really in it if I'm not on the verge of fucking some shit up or like arriving at some thought I've never had before, So always looking for that feeling.
One more question before I let you go. Talk a little bit about what you want to. So many cats today, they make album after album after album. They're in the studio constantly, and they just the albums sit on the shelf. There's not the opportunity to take songs and road test them and have them take on a life of their own before you record. And I just wonder, aside from just that process, what are you hoping to accomplish with this record in terms of sort of getting people's ears to expand? Sonic appreciation, let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just say I agree with you that when you play the stuff night after night, it just takes on a whole new level of evolution.
Right.
And actually the record that we made was already like a year and a half ago. And so in a lot of ways it was naive compared to what we're doing now. Different palette of instruments, different tempo. It's already changed so much. But thank God I actually still like that version because it was naive,
In what sense? I mean, that it wasn't like you were 10 years old doing Mile 21.
I was, yeah, totally.
I mean, anyway, the point is it's matured, right? It's aged well,
Totally. It's and it's continuing. I mean, I just on sound check, that organ has so many features. I'm still getting to know it, and I just stumbled into a couple tones that I was just like, oh shit, I can't believe I haven't figured out this tone this whole tour. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
There was no question.
Yeah.
Nico, Georis, I look forward to you rocking. I'm going to be bringing a lot of urgency from the floor, so
hell yeah.
Rock it out, baby.
Yeah,
Thanks for taking the time, my man. Much love.
Hell yeah.
The Jake Feinberg Show from LA. We'll see you later.